The sleek silver ship drifted through the cold darkness of space, its hull scarred by countless micrometeorite impacts. Inside, Kara pressed her blue-scaled hand against the viewport, watching the distant stars blur past. She had been traveling for 3 solar cycles now, rejected from every world she tried to call home. Her people, the Zelathi, were gone. Their planet had burned when their sun went supernova 5 years ago. Only a few thousand had escaped in time, scattering across the galaxy like seeds blown by cosmic wind. But wherever Kara went, the same story repeated itself. Zelathi are trouble, they would say. Your people's technology is too advanced. You'll upset the balance. Or worse, we remember what your ancestors did in the Great War. We cannot forget. The Great War had ended 200 years before Kara was even born. But the galaxy had a long memory. Her people had once been conquerors, their advanced technology making them nearly unstoppable. They had changed, evolved beyond their violent past, but no one wanted to take the chance. The ship's computer chimed softly. Approaching Sol system. Planet designation. Earth. Inhabitants. Humans. Technology level. Pre-galactic. No record of previous Zelathi contact. Kara's heart sank. Pre-galactic meant they hadn't even achieved faster than light travel yet. They probably didn't know other intelligent life existed. But her ship's fuel reserves were critically low. She had enough for 1 landing. Maybe 2, if she was careful. This backwater planet would have to do. Computer, what do we know about humans? Limited data available. Carbon-based life forms. Achieved nuclear fission. Basic spaceflight capability. No unified planetary government. Multiple languages and cultures. She sighed. A fractured, primitive world. But beggars couldn't be choosers. At least they had no reason to hate the Zelathi. They didn't even know her people existed. Take us in. Try to avoid their detection systems. The ship slipped past Jupiter's massive bulk, weaving between its moons. Then Mars, red and dusty. And finally, there it was. Earth, a blue marble swirled with white clouds, so much like her lost home that tears pricked her eyes. Warning, the computer announced. Multiple artificial satellites detected. Primitive radar systems active. Can we avoid them? Negative. Fuel reserves insufficient for extensive maneuvering. Kara closed her eyes. So much for a quiet arrival. Find a remote landing site. Somewhere with minimal population. The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its cloaking systems straining against the heat of entry. Below, the North American continent spread out like a patchwork quilt of greens and browns. The computer selected a landing site in what appeared to be a forested area in the northern region called Canada. But something went wrong during the descent. A power coupling, weakened by years of travel and lack of maintenance, finally gave out. The ship lurched, spinning wildly. Kara gripped her seat as alarms screamed. The cloaking failed. The ship became visible to anyone watching. She managed to regain some control, but the landing was rough. The ship carved a deep furrow through the forest floor before coming to rest against a cluster of pine trees. Smoke rose from damaged systems. Kara checked herself for injuries, finding only bruises, then stumbled to the exit hatch. The air that flooded in was cool and sweet, filled with scents she didn't recognize. Pine, earth, something floral. She stepped out onto alien soil for the 100th time. But this felt different. There was no committee waiting to turn her away. No armed guards, just trees and sky and the sound of birds she had disturbed. Then she heard the voices. Humans were coming, multiple footsteps crackling through the underbrush. Kara's hand went to the translator device at her throat. It should work. Theoretically, her people had studied human transmissions enough to understand their languages. The first human to emerge from the trees was an older male, with gray hair and kind eyes. He wore simple clothing and carried no weapons. Behind him, others appeared. Young and old. Male and female. They stared at her with expressions of wonder, not fear. "Hello," the older man said slowly. "Are you hurt?" The translator worked perfectly. rendering his words into zealothy. Kara's own words would be translated for them. I am uninjured. My ship is damaged. You're not from Earth. It wasn't a question. No. I am Zalathi. My name is Kara. She hesitated. How to explain a lifetime of rejection? I needed a place to land. I will leave as soon as I can, repair my ship. The humans exchanged glances. Then the older man stepped forward. I'm David. This is my family. We saw your ship come down. Saw it appear out of nowhere. He smiled. We've been waiting a long time to know we weren't alone in the universe. You are not afraid? A younger woman laughed. Are you kidding? This is the coolest thing that's ever happened. A real alien. Wait until the internet sees this. Sarah, hush, David said gently. Can't you see she's scared? He turned back to Kara. You don't have to leave. Not right away. You look like you've been traveling for a long time. Kara couldn't hide her surprise. You would? Let me stay. Why not? You haven't tried to harm us. You clearly need help. He gestured to her ship. That looks like it needs more than a quick fix. We can help. If you'll let us. But I am alien, different. My people have a complicated history. David shrugged. So do we. Every species has things they're not proud of. Doesn't mean you should be judged for it. More humans were arriving now. Some carried devices that Kara recognized as primitive imaging technology. They were recording her. She tensed, waiting for the fear to set in, for them to realize the danger. Instead, one small human child broke free from her mother's grasp and ran forward. Before anyone could stop her, she wrapped her arms around Kara's leg in what the translator identified as a hug. Pretty scales, the child announced. Are you a mermaid? Emma, her mother called, rushing forward. I'm so sorry. It's all right, Kara said, surprised to find that it was. She knelt down to the child's level. I'm not a mermaid. But thank you. No one has ever called my scales pretty before. They're blue like the ocean, Emma said matter-of-factly. I like blue. Something warm bloomed in Kara's chest. In all her travels, on all those advanced worlds, no one had ever simply accepted her like this. They had seen her as zealothy first, a potential threat second, and an individual last. If at all. The authorities will be here soon, one of the humans said, checking a communication device. Someone reported the crash. Kara's hearts began to race. Authorities meant government. Government meant decisions made from fear and protocol, not kindness. David seemed to sense her panic. It'll be all right. We'll make sure they understand. You came in peace. That has not mattered before, Kara said quietly. Well, this is Earth, Sarah said, lifting her chin. We do things differently here. The sound of vehicles grew louder. Large wheeled transports emerged from a rough road, bearing official markings. Humans in uniform stepped out, weapons visible, but not drawn. Kara forced herself to remain still, though every instinct screamed at her to run. The lead officer, a woman with sharp eyes and dark skin, approached slowly. She looked at Kara, then at the ship, then at the gathered civilians. I'm Colonel Martinez, Canadian Armed Forces. I'm going to need everyone to step back. Her gaze fixed on Kara. Are you the pilot of this vessel? I am. Are you alone? Yes. Do you come in peace? Such a simple question. Such a human question. Kara almost laughed. I come seeking refuge. My ship is damaged. I mean no harm to Earth or its people. Colonel Martinez studied her for a long moment. Then she activated her radio. This is Martinez. We have a confirmed extraterrestrial visitor. Single individual. Appears to be in distress. No hostile action. Requesting diplomatic protocol, not military. She lowered the radio and addressed Kara directly. I won't lie to you. This is unprecedented. There will be questions. Lots of them. But Canada has a long history of accepting refugees. I see no reason why that shouldn't extend beyond our planet. I am a refugee, Kara admitted. My world is gone. My people scattered. Other worlds have turned me away. Why? Because of what we were. Because of fears about what we might become again. Martinez nodded slowly. I understand. Earth has its own bloody history. We've learned, slowly and painfully, that people can change, that they deserve the chance to prove it. She gestured to her team. We'll secure your ship, make sure no one disturbs it. Then, if you're willing, we'd like you to come with us. There are people who will want to meet you. Scientists, diplomats, but also regular folks who've dreamed their whole lives of this moment. And if I refuse, then we'll help you fix your ship and see you on your way. But I hope you'll give us a chance. Give Earth a chance. Kara looked around at the gathered humans. They watched her with fascination, excitement, and yes, some fear, but not hatred, not rejection. Even now, more were arriving. Word was spreading. Earth's first alien visitor. My ship will need extensive repairs. It could take time. We've got nothing but time, David said, stepping forward again. My son's an engineer. Been tinkering with machines his whole life. He'd love to look at alien technology. The metals you need might not exist on Earth, someone else pointed out. Then we'll help you find them or make them, another responded. The enthusiasm was infectious. These humans, barely capable of leaving their own planet, were offering to help her repair technology centuries beyond their understanding, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. There is something else, Kara said slowly. I am not the only Zealothi refugee. There are others, scattered across the galaxy, most living in hiding or barely tolerated on worlds that don't want them. Martinez exchanged glances with her team. How many others? Perhaps 3,000, maybe less now. We have no homeworld to return to. 3,000, Martinez repeated. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Earth has over 7 billion people. I think we can find room for 3,000 more. Kara's legs nearly gave out. You would accept us all? That's not my decision alone to make, Martinez admitted. It would require international cooperation, UN involvement. But if your people are refugees, if they come in peace, I believe we would try. It's what humanity aspires to be. Even if we don't always succeed. For the first time in years, Kara felt hope. Real, tangible hope. I would need to contact them. Tell them about Earth. We'll help with that too. Our communication systems are primitive by your standards, I'm sure, but we're creative. Young Emma had wandered back to Kara's side. She tugged on the alien's hand. If your friends come, will they have pretty scales too? Some will, Kara said, finding herself smiling. Some have green scales, or purple. A few even have patterns like your Earth snakes. Cool, Emma breathed. Will they be my friends? I think they would like that very much. More vehicles were arriving. Media vans with satellite dishes, government cars with tinted windows. The quiet forest was becoming a hub of activity. Kara should have been terrified. This was exposure on a planetary scale. There would be no hiding after this. Instead, she felt something she hadn't experienced since watching her world burn. She felt welcome. I accept your offer, she told Martinez. I will answer your questions and share what knowledge I can safely provide. In return, you get a home, the colonel finished. For as long as you need it. As they led her to one of the vehicles, Kara heard the humans talking excitedly. Some were already making plans to study her ship. Others discussed housing arrangements. One group was debating what Zealothi might like to eat. This changes everything, someone said. About damn time, another replied. We've been alone out here too long. Kara paused at the vehicle door, looking back at her damaged ship. It had carried her so far, through so much rejection and loneliness. Now it had brought her here, to this small blue world that the rest of the galaxy ignored. Perhaps that was why Earth could offer what others couldn't. They hadn't been part of the galactic community during the Great War. They carried no old grudges, No ancient fears. They saw her not as a member of a species to be feared, but as an individual who needed help. "Are you ready?" Martinez asked gently. Kara took one last look at the gathered humans. They were still filming, still talking excitedly. Children were being lifted onto shoulders for a better view. Despite the military presence, it felt more like a celebration than a security operation. "I'm ready," she said, and stepped into the vehicle. As they drove away, she could hear the crowds growing larger. The news was spreading across their planet at the speed of their primitive internet. By tomorrow, every human on Earth would know that they were no longer alone in the universe. And more importantly, they would know that when the universe had nowhere else to turn, Earth had opened its doors. The vehicle rounded a bend, and Kara caught sight of a vast lake through the trees. The water was blue like her scales. Just as little Emma had said, for the first time since her exodus began, the sight of blue didn't make her think of all she had lost. Instead, it made her think of all she might gain. "Tell me about Earth," she said to Martinez. "Tell me about the world that might become my home." The colonel smiled. "Where would you like me to start?" "Wherever feels right," Kara replied. "I have time now, and for the first time in years." That felt like a gift rather than a curse. The United Nations building in New York had seen many historic moments, but nothing quite like this. Kara stood before the General Assembly, her blue scales catching the light from the tall windows. 3 weeks had passed since her crash landing in Canada, and in that time, the world had changed. Behind her, a holographic display showed images of her destroyed home world. The technology was her own, carefully adapted to work with Earth's primitive systems. The humans had been eager students, though she was careful not to share anything that could be weaponized. Trust, she had learned, must be built slowly. "My people were not always peaceful," she said, her translator rendering her words into dozens of Earth languages simultaneously. 200 years ago, we conquered worlds. We took what we wanted because we had the power to do so. The galaxy has not forgotten." She clicked to the next image. A Zalathi warship from the Great War, bristling with weapons that could crack moons. The assembly stirred uneasily. "This is why I am rejected wherever I go. This is the shadow that follows every Zalathi survivor." She paused, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as she could. "But we are not those conquerors anymore. We chose to change. We dismantled our war fleets. We shared our peaceful technologies. We tried to make amends. And when our son died, we had no weapons to save ourselves. We had to flee in whatever ships we could find." The Secretary General, an elderly woman from Nigeria named Adaora Okafor, leaned forward. "You speak of change, of redemption. These are concepts humanity understands well, but there are those among us who ask, how can we be certain? How do we know the Zalathi won't return to their old ways?" Kara had expected this question. On every world, it was the same fear. "You cannot be certain. Just as I cannot be certain that humanity, with its own history of violence, won't turn on me. Trust requires risk, but I can show you something." She changed the display again. This time, it showed a Zalathi colony ship, packed with refugees. But more importantly, it showed the families inside. Children playing in cramped corridors, adults teaching them songs from a world that no longer existed, elderly Zalathi tending small gardens of preserved plants from their homeland. These are my people now, not conquerors, refugees. Parents trying to keep their children safe. Elders mourning a world they'll never see again. We have learned what loss means. We have learned humility. A delegate from Japan raised his hand. "You say there are 3,000 Zalathi refugees. Our world already struggles with human refugees from wars and climate change. How can we take in aliens when we cannot even care for our own?" Before Kara could respond, another delegate stood. It was the representative from Jordan. "My country has taken in millions of human refugees. It is not easy, but it is right. These Zalathi have technologies that could help us solve the very problems you mention. Climate change, energy crises, food shortages. Should we turn away such help because of fear? And what of the security risks? The Russian delegate interjected. These beings possess technology far beyond ours. What stops them from conquering us, as they did others? Kara touched a control on her wrist. The holographic display shifted to show her crashed ship, now surrounded by human scientists and engineers. Among them, she spotted a familiar face. Jake Mitchell, David's son, the engineer who had become her first human friend after the officials. Your scientists have been studying my ship for 3 weeks. Tell me, what have they found? There was a murmur of confusion. Then, the American delegate cleared his throat. Perhaps we should ask Dr. Mitchell to report his findings. He's been leading the research team. Jake appeared on the main screen, beamed in from Canada. He looked tired but excited, his hair sticking up at odd angles. Hello, everyone. Hi, Kara. He waved awkwardly, then cleared his throat. Right. So, the ship, we've been over every inch of it. What we found was, well, it's not a warship. Not even close. He pulled up technical diagrams. The hull is designed for maximum efficiency, not armor. The power systems are incredibly advanced, but completely unsuited for weapons. Even the shields are purely defensive, designed to handle space debris and radiation, not weapons fire. This ship was built for one purpose: running. It's a refugee vessel, pure and simple. But surely the technology could be weaponized. The Russian delegate pressed. Jake shrugged. You could say the same about nuclear power, or even fire, for that matter. Any technology can be turned into a weapon if you try hard enough. But Kara's been completely open with us. She's shown us exactly what each system does. She's even helped us understand some principles that could revolutionize clean energy. If she wanted to conquer us, she wouldn't be teaching us. She'd be demanding our submission. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, the Secretary General said. She turned back to Kara. You have been remarkably open with us. But I must ask, why Earth? Of all the worlds in the galaxy, why come here? Kara's throat tightened. I didn't choose Earth. I ran out of options. My fuel was nearly gone. You were simply the closest habitable world that had never heard of the Zalathi. So we were a last resort? Yes, Kara admitted. But in the 3 weeks since I arrived, I have seen something in humanity that I didn't find anywhere else. You are contradictory, capable of great violence and great kindness. You have not conquered your darker nature, but you acknowledge it. You struggle with it. You try to be better, even when you fail. She thought of the messages that had poured in from around the world. Most were welcoming, excited. Some were fearful, even hateful. But what struck her was how the kind voices rallied to drown out the cruel ones. On advanced worlds, they looked at me and saw only the past. Here, you seem more interested in the future. The delegate from Brazil stood up. I motion that we take a recess. This decision cannot be made lightly. We need time to consult with our governments. Our people, seconded, several voices called out. As the assembly broke up, Kara found herself surrounded by delegates wanting to speak with her personally. Some asked about technology, others about Zalathi culture. A few simply wanted to shake her hand and welcome her to Earth. Later, in a quiet conference room, she sat with Secretary General Okafor and a small group of key ambassadors. The formal diplomatic language had given way to more honest conversation. You know there will be resistance, Okafor said. There are groups who believe this is all an elaborate invasion plan. Some religious leaders are calling you demons or angels, depending on their interpretation. And frankly, some nations see this as an opportunity to gain technological advantages over their rivals. I expected as much, Kara replied. Humans are not so different from other species in that regard. Yet you still wish to bring your people here? Kara was quiet for a moment. Through the window, she could see the New York skyline, primitive by galactic standards. But there was something beautiful about it. These humans had built all this without help, without shortcuts. They had earned their progress through trial and error, conflict and cooperation. May I tell you about my daughter? she said finally. The room grew still. She had not spoken of her personal life before. Her name was Vera. She was 7 years old when our son began to die. She loved to sing. Her favorite song was about swimmers in the celestial sea, what you would call space. She used to make up new verses about the planets she would visit someday. Kara's voice remained steady, but her scales had darkened, a sign of deep emotion that the humans were beginning to recognize. She didn't make it to the evacuation ships. The solar flares came too fast. Millions didn't make it. She looked up at the assembled humans. Those of us who survived carry not just the burden of our species' past, but the weight of all we lost. We are tired of running, tired of being judged for sins we didn't commit. We just want a place where our children, the few we have left, can grow up without fear. The Indian ambassador, an elderly man with kind eyes, reached across the table to touch her hand. I understand. My grandparents fled their homeland during the partition. They carried that loss their whole lives. But they also found new homes, built new lives. It is possible. The question, the German ambassador said, is not whether we want to help. I believe most of us do. The question is how. 3,000 refugees we could manage. But what if more come? What if other species see Earth as a safe haven? Would that be such a bad thing? The Canadian ambassador asked. We've always wondered if we were alone. Now we know we're not. Maybe Earth could be something new in the galaxy. A place where species come together, not in conquest or trade, but in refuge. A beautiful dream, the Chinese ambassador said. But dreams must be balanced with reality. We would need guarantees, agreements, ways to ensure that those who come here respect our sovereignty. Kara nodded. I would propose a trial period. Bring a small group first. Perhaps 50 volunteers. Let humanity see that we can contribute, that we can integrate. Build trust, slowly. And the others? They wait. They survive as best they can, but knowing that there might be hope, that Earth might accept them, that would give them strength to endure. The discussion continued for hours. By evening, a preliminary agreement had been reached. 50 Zalathi refugees would be permitted to come to Earth for a 1-year trial period. They would be distributed among volunteer nations, closely monitored, but treated as guests rather than prisoners. Their skills would be put to use helping with Earth's challenges while cultural exchange programs helped both species learn about each other. As Kara left the UN building, she was met by a crowd of humans holding signs. Her security detail tensed, but she recognized many of the faces. These were the people who had been camping outside, waiting for news. Their signs read, "Refugees welcome," and "Earth for everyone," and "Kara, you are home." A young girl broke through the security line, reminding Kara painfully of Emma from the forest. She carried a drawing, a blue figure, and a small human figure holding hands under a starry sky. I made this for you, the girl said shyly. So you know you have friends here. Kara knelt down, accepting the drawing with trembling hands. Thank you. May I ask your name? Vera, the girl said. Just like your daughter. For the first time since her world burned, Kara wept openly. The crowd surged forward, not in anger but in comfort. Strangers embraced her, offering tissues and gentle words. Her security detail looked confused, unsure how to handle a mob that only wanted to show kindness. That night, in her assigned quarters, Kara activated her long-range communicator. The technology was beyond Earth's understanding, able to send messages across the galaxy through quantum entanglement. She had been afraid to use it before, afraid of only hearing despair from her scattered people. This is Caraval Theta, identification code 7 Blue Morning. I broadcast to all Zalathi refugees. I have found something I thought impossible. I have found acceptance. She spoke for an hour, describing Earth and its chaotic, wonderful inhabitants. She explained the trial program, asked for volunteers who could contribute their skills peacefully. She warned them that Earth was primitive, that life would be basic by their standards, but she also told them about Emma and Vera, about Jake's excitement over her ship, about the delegates who saw potential instead of threat. When she finished, she waited. One by one, responses came in. From a mining vessel hiding in an asteroid belt. From a family living in the slums of a trade station. From a scientist working under an assumed name, on a world that barely tolerated her presence. We volunteer. Send coordinates. Is it real? Is it truly real? I can teach. I was a teacher before. My children haven't played openly in 2 years. We're coming home. That last message made Kara pause. Home. Could Earth really become that? Could this young, violent, beautiful species really accept them? A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Jake, carrying a box of what he called pizza. Thought you might be hungry. Also, I wanted to show you something. He pulled out a tablet, showing her messages from around the world. Universities offering to host Zalathi scientists. Towns volunteering to welcome refugee families. Children sending drawings. Engineers proposing collaborative projects. It's not all positive, he admitted. There's fear too. And hate. But look at the ratio. For every negative message, there are hundreds of positive ones. Humanity wants this to work. Why? Kara asked, genuinely puzzled. Your species gains little from this arrangement. We are broken people from a broken world. Why do you care? Jake was quiet for a moment, chewing his pizza thoughtfully. You know what the most common response to your arrival was? It wasn't fear or excitement. It was relief. Relief that we weren't alone. Relief that when we finally made it to the stars, there would be others to meet us. And yeah, relief that the first aliens we met were people who needed help, not conquerors looking for subjects. He grinned. Plus, do you have any idea how boring Earth politics were before you showed up? Now everyone's working together because nobody wants to be the country that screwed up first contact. Despite everything, Kara found herself laughing. It was a rusty sound she hadn't laughed since before the evacuation. You humans are strange. Yeah, we get that a lot. But hey, strange is good sometimes. Strange means we might just be crazy enough to make this work. Over the following days, preparations began in earnest. Kara worked with Earth scientists to establish communication protocols. She helped design habitats that would be comfortable for Zalathi physiology. She recorded educational videos about her people's culture, history, and needs. The selection process for the first 50 volunteers was heartbreaking. Every Zalathi wanted to come, but they needed the right mix of skills and temperaments. Families with young children were prioritized, as were those with skills Earth needed. Doctors who understood xenobiology, engineers who could adapt Zalathi technology safely, teachers who could help both species learn. The day the announcement was made, Kara stood with Secretary General Okafor at a press conference. The room was packed with journalists from every nation, their cameras transmitting to billions of humans around the world. Today marks a new chapter in human history, Okafor began. We have always looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know we are not. And with that knowledge comes responsibility. She gestured to Kara. The Zalathi have asked for our help. They come not as conquerors or traitors, but as refugees seeking safety. In offering them sanctuary, we define who we are as a species. Are we ruled by fear of the unknown? Or are we capable of compassion that transcends worlds? The questions from the press were intense but mostly respectful. Kara answered them honestly, hiding nothing about her people's past or their current desperation. When asked about the risks, she acknowledged them freely. Yes, there is risk. My people were once warriors, but we chose a different path. Just as humanity has struggled to overcome its own violent history, perhaps that is why Earth can offer what other worlds cannot. You understand that people can change. The final question came from a young journalist in the back. Kara, do you really think this can work? Different species? Different cultures? Such a gap in technology? Kara thought of the children who had sent her drawings, of Jake staying up all night to understand her ship's systems, of the delegates who saw opportunity where others saw only threat. 3 weeks ago, I crashed on this planet expecting nothing. I have received more kindness here than in 3 years of wandering the galaxy. If humanity can accept one desperate alien, I believe you can accept 50. And perhaps, in time, many more. Not just Zalathi, the journalist pressed. What happens when other refugee species hear about Earth? What if you become the galaxy's shelter? Quote, Kara looked at Okafor, who nodded encouragingly. Then perhaps that will be Earth's gift to the galaxy. Not your technology, which is still developing. Not your military might, which is limited to one solar system, but your capacity for growth, for acceptance, for finding strength in diversity. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The galaxy is ancient and often cruel. Old wounds fester between species. But Earth is young. You have no part in those old conflicts. You could be the neutral ground where enemies become neighbors, where refugees become citizens, where the past gives way to the future. The room erupted with questions, but Okafor called an end to the conference. As they left the stage, the Secretary General took Kara's arm. You paint a beautiful picture of our future. I paint a hopeful picture, Kara corrected. Whether it becomes beautiful depends on the choices humanity makes. That evening, Kara stood on the observation deck of the temporary facility that had become her home. Below, New York City sparkled with lights. Somewhere out there, humans were debating her fate and the fate of her people. Some with fear, some with hope. Most with a mixture of both. Her communicator chimed. A message from the colony ship carrying the 50 volunteers. They were scared but hopeful. They sang the old songs to keep their spirits up. They taught their children about the blue world that might become home. We trust you, Kara, the message said. You found us hope among the stars. She thought of her daughter Vera, who had loved songs about swimming through the celestial sea. She would have loved Earth's oceans, would have marveled at this young species reaching for the stars despite their limitations. I will not fail you, Kara whispered to the stars. I will not fail any of you. Behind her, footsteps approached. It was Jake, along with several other humans she had come to know. Scientists, diplomats, and ordinary citizens who had become friends. Thought you might like some company, Jake said. Big day tomorrow when the colony ship arrives. Are your people ready? Kara asked. As ready as we can be. There are welcoming committees in 5 countries. Temporary housing is prepared. Schools are planning integration programs. He laughed. My mom's already planning a massive welcome dinner. She's been researching Zalathi cuisine for days. She knows we can eat most Earth food? Yeah. But she wants to make something that tastes like home for you. That simple kindness nearly broke Kara again. We have done nothing to deserve such generosity. Sure you have, one of the others said. It was Dr. Chen, a climate scientist who had been working with Kara on adapting Zalathi atmospheric processing technology. You've given us hope too. Hope that we're not going to destroy ourselves before we reach the stars. Hope that there's a community out there waiting for us, even if it's complicated. And you've shown us that Earth can be better. Another added. All our divisions seem pretty silly when there are actual aliens needing help. They stood together in comfortable silence, human and Zalathi, watching the stars. Tomorrow would bring challenges. There would be those who protested, those who feared, those who sought to exploit. But tonight, there was peace and possibility. Tell us about your daughter, Doctor, Chen said gently. What was her favorite song? The one about the celestial sea? Kara's scales shifted to a lighter shade, the Zalathi equivalent of a sad smile. It was an old song, from before our people even achieved spaceflight. We looked at the stars and imagined swimming between them like fish in the ocean. She began to sing, her translator converting the haunting melody into something humans could understand. One by one, her human friends began to hum along, creating a harmony that had never existed before in the universe. Below them, Earth turned on, preparing for a future none had imagined. And above them, a colony ship carried 50 souls toward a new definition of home. 6 months later, Kara stood in a classroom in Vancouver, watching 12 human children and 5 Zalathi children work together on a project about ocean ecosystems. The Zalathi children, their scales ranging from deep green to purple, were explaining how their lost world's oceans had 3 distinct layers with different gravitational properties. The human children listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that made even Kara think in new ways. "So you could swim up but fall down?" a human boy asked, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. "Yes," Lixa, a 7-year-old Zalathi girl, exclaimed. Her purple scales brightened with excitement. "My grandmother said it was like flying and swimming at same time." The integration had not been without challenges. The first Zalathi colony ship had arrived to protests in some cities, with signs reading, "Earth for Humans," and "Remember the Great War." But for every protester, there had been 10 welcomers, families offering spare rooms, businesses offering jobs, universities begging for Zalathi professors. Kara's communication device buzzed softly. Another message from deep space. In the 6 months since the first 50 Zalathi arrived, word had spread through the refugee networks, but it wasn't just Zalathi anymore. "Kara Val Theta," the message began. "I am Rix of the Morvaki. Our world was destroyed by the same expanding empire that drove your people to conquest centuries ago. We have been unwelcome everywhere, labeled as collaborators though we were victims. We have heard Earth accepts those with nowhere else to go. Is this true? We have only 43 survivors. We are tired of running." She stepped outside to compose her response. The Vancouver skyline stretched before her. Mount Baker, visible in the distance. 3 Zalathi engineers were working with human crews to install atmospheric processors that would help reverse climate change. Their technology, freely given, was already making a difference. Before she could respond, another message arrived. Then another. A family of Kenti, whose silicon-based biology made most worlds uninhabitable. A group of Havari refugees, fleeing religious persecution on their homeworld. Even 3 Gorvani, descendants of the empire that had once driven the Zalathi to become conquerors, now themselves scattered by a newer, crueler power. Her hands trembled. This was beyond what anyone had imagined. Earth's acceptance of the Zalathi had sent ripples through the galaxy. The unwanted, the dispossessed, the rejected, they all looked to this small blue world with desperate hope. "Dr. Kara?" She turned to find Lisa Chen, formerly Dr. Chen, now her research partner and friend. The human woman's expression showed she understood the weight of the moment. "More requests?" "Many more. Different species, different tragedies, all with nowhere else to go." "Saf." Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Show me." They went to the community center that had become the unofficial headquarters for the Zalathi Human Integration Initiative. Jake was there, along with several other humans and Zalathi, who had become the core team. On the walls hung children's artwork. Photos of mixed species families who had formed bonds, newspaper clippings in dozens of languages, celebrating successful collaborations. Kara projected the messages for all to see. The room fell silent as they absorbed the scale of what was happening. "This is beyond our mandate," one of the human administrators said slowly. 50 Zalathi was one thing. This could be hundreds, thousands. From species we know nothing about. "Species Earth knows nothing about," corrected Thex, one of the Zalathi engineers. His green scales had dulled with age, but his mind was sharp. "Some of these we have records on. The Morvaki are gentle beings. Artists mainly. The Kenti are brilliant mathematicians. The Havari." He paused. "The Havari can be difficult, but no more so than humans or Zalathi." "And the Gorvani?" Jake asked quietly. The room tensed. Even among refugees, old wounds ran deep. "The Gorvani Empire fell 50 years ago," Kara said carefully. "These are not conquerors. They are children and grandchildren of conquerors, paying for sins they didn't commit. Just as we are." "The irony is thick," Thex muttered. "They drove us to become monsters. Now they flee to the only world that accepted those monsters." Maybe that's exactly why Earth needs to accept them, Lisa said. Everyone turned to look at her. Think about it. Where else in the galaxy could Zelathi and Gorvani live as neighbors? Where else could old enemies become just people trying to survive? Jake pulled up his tablet, showing global response metrics. The Zelathi integration is going better than projected. Crime rates in mixed communities are actually lower than baseline. Economic benefits from shared technology are already showing. And look at this, approval ratings for the refugee program have increased in every country except 2. But different species mean different needs, the administrator protested. Different atmospheres, different food, different everything. So we learn, Kara said simply. Earth has always been a world of diversity. Now that diversity extends beyond one species, the debate continued for hours. By evening, they had a proposal. Earth would establish a formal galactic refugee council. Each species requesting sanctuary would be evaluated. Small groups would be accepted on trial bases, just as the Zelathi had been. Earth would become not just a haven, but a model for integration. The proposal went to the UN within a week. The debates were fierce. Some nations worried about being overwhelmed. Others saw opportunity. The deciding moment came when a 9-year-old Zelathi girl named Kiva addressed the General Assembly. "My name is Kiva," she said, her young voice clear and strong. "I was 3 when my world burned. I don't remember it. Earth is my home. My best friend is human. Her name is Sarah. We play together. We learn together." When she scraped her knee, I helped bandage it. When I was scared during a thunderstorm, she held my hand. She looked around the room with the fearless honesty of childhood. Adults make things complicated, but it's simple. We all need somewhere safe. We all need friends. Earth can be that place. Earth is that place. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was overwhelming. Earth would accept refugees from across the galaxy, carefully, thoughtfully, but with open hearts. The first Morvaki family arrived 2 months later. They were, as Thex had described, gentle artist beings with crystalline structures growing from their heads that rang like bells when they were happy. The sound filled Vancouver airport with music that made hardened security guards wipe away tears. The Kenti came next, their silicon forms requiring special accommodations but their mathematical genius immediately revolutionizing Earth's understanding of quantum mechanics. They worked with human and Zelathi scientists to develop technologies that had been thought impossible. The Havari arrived with suspicion and defensive pride, but found unexpected kinship with human religious communities who understood persecution. Within months, interfaith dialogues included voices from beyond Earth, and then came the moment everyone had dreaded and anticipated: the first Gorvani refugees. There were only 12 of them, all young adults who had been children when their empire fell. They stood in the arrival area, proud bearing, undermined by the fear in their 6 eyes. They were tall, imposing figures with natural armor, plating that had once made them feared warriors. Now that armor only made them look vulnerable, like crabs without a shell to retreat into. The Zelathi refugees who had come to greet new arrivals stood frozen. Generational trauma ran deep. Several turned to leave, but Kara stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth," she said in Gorvani. She had learned their language for this moment. "May you find the peace here that the galaxy denied you." The lead Gorvani, barely past adolescence by their standards, blinked all 6 eyes in sequence, a sign of extreme emotion. You are Zelathi. We have no right to ask for your welcome." "No," Kara agreed, "but Earth offers it anyway. That is what makes this world special." Slowly, carefully, bonds formed. A Gorvani engineer worked with a Zelathi teacher to design playgrounds that accommodated all species' children. A human chef learned to cook for silicon-based Kenti and crystalline Morvaki. A Havari priest, a human rabbi, and a Zelathi philosopher started a podcast about finding meaning in exile that gained millions of listeners across Earth. Not every day was peaceful. There were incidents, misunderstandings, a few crimes. But what surprised the galaxy was how quickly Earth adapted. Humans, it turned out, were remarkably good at xenointegration, perhaps because they had so much practice with diversity among their own species, perhaps because they were young enough to be flexible, or perhaps because they had always dreamed of the stars being full of friends they hadn't met yet. A year after the first Zalathi arrival, Kara stood before the UN once again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Representatives from every refugee species stood with her. The assembly itself had changed. Advisors from refugee communities now sat with human delegations, offering perspectives from beyond Earth. 1 year ago, I came to you as a lone refugee, Kara began. Today, I stand as a citizen of Earth, alongside my fellow citizens from 7 different worlds. We have not just survived, we have thrived. And in doing so, we have changed the galaxy's understanding of what is possible. She clicked to a display showing economic data. Earth's technology has advanced by centuries in 1 year. Your climate crisis is being solved with Zalathi atmospheric processors and Kenti energy solutions. Morvaki art has revolutionized human culture. Havari medicine has saved thousands of human lives. And yes, even Gorvani engineering has strengthened your infrastructure. But more than that, she continued, Earth has given the galaxy something it desperately needed. Hope. Proof that the cycles of hatred can be broken. That refugees can become resources. That diversity is strength, not weakness. The Secretary General, still Adora Okafor, smiled with pride. The first year has been remarkable. But we know challenges remain. The question before us now is, do we continue? Do we formalize Earth's role as a sanctuary world? The debate was shorter this time. The evidence was clear. Despite the challenges, despite the fear-mongering by some, the refugee integration had benefited everyone. Earth was stronger, more advanced, more united than it had been before first contact. The vote was unanimous. That night, celebrations erupted across Earth. In Toronto, Zalathi musicians played ancient songs, while human dancers created new movements to match. In Tokyo, Kenti mathematicians drew equations in light that turned mathematics into art. In London, Morvaki bells rang out in harmonies that made the Thames shimmer. In Cairo, Havari healers worked alongside human doctors in clinics that served all species freely. In Sao Paulo, young Gorvani played football with human children, their natural armor making them excellent goalkeepers. Kara found herself back where it all began in the Canadian forest, where she had crashed. The ship was gone now, carefully disassembled and studied, its parts contributing to humanity's growing fleet of interstellar vessels. But the clearing remained, turned into a monument to first contact. Jake was there, along with his family and many others who had been present that first day. Emma, the little girl who had hugged Kara's leg, was taller now, chattering excitedly to a young Zalathi boy about their school science project. "Did you imagine this?" Jake asked, gesturing at the mixed gathering. "When you crashed here, could you have imagined this?" "No," Kara admitted. "I imagined, at best, tolerance. I never imagined acceptance. I certainly never imagined love. And there was love. Romantic partnerships had formed between species. Human Zalathi marriages were becoming common. A Morvaki artist and human musician had just announced the galaxy's first cross-species adoption, taking in orphaned children from 3 different worlds. "What's next?" Jake asked. "There are more refugees out there. The galaxy is vast and often cruel." Kara looked up at the stars visible through the canopy. Somewhere out there, ships drifted in the void, carrying desperate souls looking for hope. Somewhere out there, worlds turned their backs on those who were different, who carried the weight of history, who had nowhere else to go. "We build," she said. "We build ships that can reach them. We build stations where they can rest. We build a network of hope that spreads from Earth throughout the galaxy. We show every world what Earth has proven, that diversity is not a weakness to be feared, but a strength to be celebrated." "The young teaching the old," David said, having overheard. He was grayer now but still carried the same warmth that had welcomed Kara that first day. Humans teaching the galaxy. Who would have thought? A communication beacon lit up Kara's device. Priority message from deep space. She opened it, expecting another refugee request. Instead, she found something unprecedented. "This is High Counselor Varex of the Galactic Council," the message began. The Galactic Council, the body that governed interactions between the galaxy's major powers, the same body that had refused to help the Zalathi refugees. "We have observed Earth's integration experiment with interest, and, surprise, you have achieved something we thought impossible. The Council wishes to open formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Despite your pre-FTL status, you have shown wisdom we lack. We wish to learn." Kara shared the message with the group. Silence fell, then erupted into excited chatter. "They want to learn from us?" Jake laughed. "The advanced civilizations want to learn from primitive Earth? Not so primitive now," Thex pointed out. "And what Earth has cannot be measured in technology alone. You have something rarer. You have compassion without judgment. You have strength through unity. You have hope." As the night wore on, Kara found herself drawn away from the celebration. She walked to the edge of the clearing where a small memorial had been erected. It bore the names of all the worlds lost to war, disaster, or hatred. Zeleth was there. So were others. But below the names of dead worlds was another list, growing longer each day. The names of children born on Earth to refugee parents. Names that carried the heritage of lost worlds, but the hope of their new one. Human names and alien names intertwined, creating something new. Among them was Vera Mitchell Val Theta. Jake and his Zalathi partner had honored both Kara's lost daughter and their new friendship in their child's name. The baby had her mother's scales and her father's eyes, and when she laughed, it sounded like bells ringing across two worlds. "She would have loved this," Kara whispered to the memorial. "My Vera would have loved to see worlds coming together. She would have written new verses to the song about swimming in the celestial sea, verses about finding islands of hope among the stars." Footsteps approached. It was one of the young Gorvani, the same one who had been so fearful upon arrival. His name was Dex, and he had become a teacher, working with mixed-species classes to help children understand their shared galaxy. "Thank you," he said simply. "My people's crimes created your people's suffering. Yet you welcomed me. Humans welcomed us both. I do not understand such forgiveness." "Lone. Neither did I," Kara admitted. "But humans have a saying. Hurt people, hurt people. They understand that cycles of pain create more pain. They choose to break the cycle. And now we all choose," Dex said. "Every refugee who comes here, every child born here, every friendship formed here, we all choose to be better than our histories." Above them, a ship's lights became visible among the stars. Another refugee vessel, carrying another group of desperate souls toward Earth's promise. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges, new species to understand, new wounds to heal, new hope to nurture. But tonight, under stars that no longer seemed cold and distant, the galaxy's unwanted had found their home. And that home was teaching the universe that rejection was not the only answer to difference. "Welcome to Earth," Kara whispered to the approaching ship. "Welcome home." The ship continued its descent, carrying its passengers toward a small blue world that had become the galaxy's unlikely sanctuary. A world whose greatest technology was not its newly acquired scientific knowledge, but its ancient capacity for compassion. A world that had been alone in the universe and so understood loneliness. A world that had been divided among itself and so understood the work of unity. Earth, rejected by no one, welcoming to all. In the clearing, the celebration continued. Human voices mixed with Zalathi songs, Morvaki bells, Havari chants, and even deep Gorvani drums that someone had thought to bring. Children of a dozen species played together, their laughter identical despite their different forms. And somewhere in that joyful noise, if you listened carefully, you could hear it, the sound of the galaxy itself beginning to heal.